My name is Emily Carter. I'm 28 years old. 3 weeks ago, at my younger sister Victoria's engagement party, my mother stood in front of 120 guests at the Ritz-Carlton ballroom and said something I will never forget. She raised her champagne glass, smiled at the crowd, and announced, "Victoria has always been our shining star, smart, beautiful, accomplished. Unlike some people," she paused and glanced directly at me, "who we've had to carry their entire lives. Worthless really is the only word that comes to mind." The room went silent. 120 pairs of eyes turned to look at me, sitting alone at a back table near the kitchen entrance. My father didn't object. My sister Victoria smiled, her hand resting on her fiancé's arm, a man she'd been dating for only 4 months, a billionaire tech entrepreneur named Alexander Hayes. But here's what they didn't know. 3 years ago, I saved Alexander Hayes' life, and what happened when he finally recognized me at that party would change everything. Before I tell you what happened next, please like and subscribe, but only if this story resonates with you. Your support means everything. Let me take you back to the beginning so you understand how I ended up in that ballroom, being called worthless by my own mother. I grew up in Boston, the eldest daughter of Richard and Margaret Carter. My father owned a commercial real estate firm. My mother was a socialite who spent her days at charity luncheons and country club tennis matches. We had money, old money, the kind that comes with expectations. Victoria was born when I was 6 years old. From the moment she arrived, she became the center of their universe. She had my mother's delicate features, blonde hair, blue eyes. I had my father's darker coloring, sharper angles. Plain, my mother would say. Practical. This wasn't the first time my family had dismissed me. When I graduated summa cum laude from Boston University with a degree in emergency medicine, my parents didn't attend the ceremony. They were in Paris with Victoria, celebrating her acceptance to an exclusive private high school. When I called to tell them I'd been accepted into the Johns Hopkins residency program, my mother said, "That's nice, dear. Victoria just made varsity cheerleading. I paid for my own college education, all 4 years. I worked 3 jobs, waitressing at night, tutoring on weekends, and doing medical transcription in between classes. I graduated with $12,000 in debt, which I paid off in my first year of residency. Victoria's education, fully funded. My parents spent $240,000 on her undergraduate degree at Yale, where she majored in art history and minored in expensive brunches. When I became a trauma surgeon at Massachusetts General Hospital, one of the youngest in the hospital's history, my mother introduced me to her friends as Emily, who works at a hospital. She introduced Victoria as our brilliant daughter, the art curator at the Museum of Fine Arts. Victoria's job at the museum was arranged through my father's connections. Her salary was $38,000 a year. Mine was $340,000. But in my family's eyes, her job had prestige. Mine had blood. I told myself it would get better. I told myself that one day they would see me, really see me, and be proud. I was wrong. Looking back, the signs were always there. Family dinners where my accomplishments were met with polite nods, while Victoria's gallery openings were celebrated with champagne toasts. Holidays where I received practical gifts, a new stethoscope, comfortable shoes for long shifts, while Victoria unwrapped jewelry, designer handbags, trips to Europe. Last Thanksgiving, I performed an emergency surgery that saved a 7-year-old girl's life after a car accident. I arrived at dinner 2 hours late, still in my scrubs, exhausted but grateful. My mother's first words to me weren't, "How are you?" or "You must be tired." She said, "You couldn't even bother to change?" Victoria wore the dress I bought her specifically for today. The little girl I saved was named Sophie. She's 10 now, healthy, thriving. Her parents send me a card every year. My own parents still don't know her name. 3 years ago, on a cold February night, everything changed. I was finishing a double shift at Mass General when they brought him in, a male patient, early 30s, multiple trauma from a severe car accident on Route 93. Internal bleeding, collapsed lung, fractured ribs. He was barely conscious. His ID said Alexander Hayes. I didn't know who he was then. I didn't know he was the founder of Hayes Technologies, worth $3.2 billion. I didn't know his company had just revolutionized cloud computing infrastructure. I just knew he was dying, and I had maybe 10 minutes to save him. The surgery took 6 hours. I repaired his lung, stopped the internal bleeding, stabilized his fractured ribs. When I finally pulled off my gloves at 4 a.m., my attending surgeon, Dr. Patricia Morrison, put her hand on my shoulder and said, "That was extraordinary work, Dr. Carter. You just saved one of the most influential tech entrepreneurs in the country." I visited him every day during his 2-week recovery. We talked about everything: his company, his vision for technology, his fear of dying alone on that highway. He told me he'd been driving back from a board meeting, distracted, exhausted. He never saw the truck that ran the red light. Before he was discharged, he tried to give me a check for $500,000. I refused. "Dr. Carter," he said, "you gave me my life back. Please, let me show my gratitude." I smiled and said, "Mr. Hayes, I'm a trauma surgeon. Saving lives is what I do. I don't need payment beyond my salary. But if you really want to thank me, make sure you slow down, delegate better, and don't work yourself to death. You have a company that depends on you." He laughed, a real genuine laugh, and promised he would. 2 months later, I received a letter from Hayes Technologies. They wanted to establish a trauma research fund at Massachusetts General Hospital in my name, the Dr. Emily Carter Emergency Medicine Innovation Fund. Initial endowment, $2 million. I accepted on the condition that my name remain private. I didn't want recognition. I wanted the money to go where it could save lives. That fund has since grown to $5.8 million. It's paid for cutting-edge equipment, training programs for residents, and research that's revolutionized trauma response times. Last year alone, it helped save 247 lives. My family had no idea. They knew I was a surgeon. They knew I worked long hours, but they never asked about my patients, my research, my innovations. To them, I was just Emily who worked at a hospital. Nothing special, nothing worth celebrating. Meanwhile, Victoria's small gallery showings made the society pages. 4 months ago, Victoria called me. She was breathless, excited. "Emily, you won't believe this. I met someone. His name is Alexander Hayes. Yes, that Alexander Hayes. We met at a charity gala. He's amazing, brilliant, successful, and he's interested in me." My stomach dropped. "Alexander Hayes?" I repeated. "The tech entrepreneur?" "Yes. He's taking me to dinner tomorrow night. Can you believe it? Mom is over the moon." I wanted to tell her. I wanted to say, "Victoria, I know him. I saved his life 3 years ago." But something stopped me. Maybe it was the years of being invisible. Maybe it was the exhaustion of always being second. Or maybe I just wanted to see if this time, just once, someone would choose me first. So I said nothing. Over the next 4 months, I watched from the sidelines as Victoria and Alexander's relationship blossomed. Dinners at exclusive restaurants, weekend trips to Martha's Vineyard, front row seats at symphony performances. My mother posted about it constantly on social media. My daughter with Alexander Hayes, one of Boston's most eligible bachelors. I saw Alexander twice during that time. Once at a hospital fundraiser where he donated $100,000 to our emergency department. We made eye contact across the room, but he didn't recognize me. I was in an evening gown, hairstyled, makeup done. 3 years ago, he'd seen me in scrubs, exhausted, covered in his blood. The second time was at a family dinner my mother insisted I attend. Alexander was polite, charming. When my mother introduced me as our other daughter Emily, who works at a hospital, he shook my hand and said, "Nice to meet you." He didn't remember me. 4 weeks ago, Victoria announced her engagement. My mother cried tears of joy. My father opened a $5,000 bottle of champagne. Victoria showed off her ring, a flawless 4-carat diamond worth approximately $250,000. When she asked me to be in her wedding party, I almost laughed. Of course, I said. I'd be honored. The engagement party was scheduled for 3 weeks later. The Ritz-Carlton, black tie, guest list, 120 people, budget, $85,000. My mother called me the week before the party. Emily, I need you to understand something. This event is important. Victoria is marrying into one of the wealthiest families in New England. We need everything to be perfect. So please, for once, try not to embarrass us. What do you mean? I asked. Just wear something appropriate, not your usual boring professional clothes. And please, if anyone asks what you do, just say you work in healthcare. Don't get specific about the surgery stuff. It makes people uncomfortable. Something inside me cracked. 28 years of being dismissed. 28 years of watching my sister receive praise for mediocrity while my achievements were buried. 28 years of loving parents who couldn't love me back. And now they wanted me to hide who I was at my own sister's engagement party. I hung up the phone without responding. The night of the party, I arrived alone. I wore a simple black dress, minimal jewelry, no makeup. I wasn't trying to stand out or blend in. I was just done trying. My mother seated me at a table near the kitchen, far from the main action. We didn't have enough room at the family table, she explained, not meeting my eyes. I sat there, alone, watching my family celebrate my sister's engagement to a man whose life I had saved, and then my mother made her toast. Victoria has always been our shining star, smart, beautiful, accomplished. Unlike some people who we've had to carry their entire lives, worthless really is the only word that comes to mind. The room went silent. I didn't cry. I didn't stand up and defend myself. I didn't cause a scene. I just became very, very calm. Because in that moment, I made a decision. I was done. I stayed for exactly 30 more minutes, long enough to avoid creating immediate drama, short enough to preserve my dignity. When I left, no one noticed. The next morning, I blocked my parents' phone numbers. I blocked Victoria. I blocked every member of my extended family who had enabled, ignored, or participated in my invisibility. Then I called my assistant at the hospital and said, "Clear my schedule for the next 2 weeks. I'm taking my first vacation in 3 years." I flew to California. I stayed with my best friend from medical school, Dr. Sarah Chen, who'd been telling me for years that I needed to set boundaries with my family. She didn't say, "I told you so." She just held me while I cried, then handed me a glass of wine and said, "What do you need?" "I need to focus on my life," I said. "My actual life, the one I've built without them." So I did. I threw myself into my work. I published 2 research papers on trauma response protocols that got picked up by the New England Journal of Medicine. I started teaching a graduate course at Harvard Medical School, Advanced Trauma Surgery Techniques, that became so popular they had to move it to a larger lecture hall. The Emily Carter Innovation Fund continued to grow. With Alexander's continued donations and matching grants from other benefactors, we expanded our research into emergency response systems that were being adopted by hospitals nationwide. I bought myself a condo in Back Bay, a beautiful 2-bedroom with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Charles River. I decorated it exactly how I wanted: modern, minimalist, peaceful, a space that was entirely mine. For the first time in my life, I wasn't trying to prove myself to anyone. I wasn't waiting for approval that would never come. I was just living. My family, meanwhile, realized my absence had consequences. My mother called my office 14 times in the first week. I didn't take any of the calls. She left voicemails. "Emily, this is ridiculous. You're being too sensitive. Call me back." Then, "Emily, Victoria needs you for dress shopping." Then, "Emily, you're embarrassing us by disappearing like this." I deleted every message without listening to the end. Victoria sent texts. What's wrong? Mom said you left the party early. Are you mad at me?" Then, "Emily, I need my maid of honor. Please respond." Then, "You're being selfish. This is my wedding. I didn't respond to those either. My father, predictably, tried to use money. He sent an email offering to make amends by giving me $50,000 as a belated graduation gift. I forwarded the email to my accountant with a single instruction. Donate this to the Boston Children's Hospital in my name. Do not tell them who it's from. 3 weeks of silence passed. Then Victoria showed up at my condo. I opened the door to find her standing in the hallway, mascara running down her face, clutching her phone. Emily, please, I need you. Mom has been impossible to deal with. The wedding planner quit, and Alexander keeps asking questions about you. I froze. Questions about me? He keeps asking why my sister isn't involved in the wedding planning. He said it's strange that I never talk about you. He asked what you do for work, and when I said you work at a hospital, he wanted to know more. It's like he's, I don't know, suspicious or something. I looked at my sister, beautiful, entitled, clueless Victoria, and felt nothing. Victoria, I'm not coming to your wedding. Her eyes widened. What? You can't just… I can, and I am. I hope you have a beautiful wedding. I hope Alexander makes you happy. But I'm not going to be there to watch our parents celebrate you while pretending I don't exist. Emily, please. Goodbye, Victoria. I closed the door. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family members who refuse to see your worth? Share your story in the comments. 2 days before Victoria's wedding, I received a phone call from an unknown number. Dr. Carter, this is Alexander Hayes. My heart stopped. Mr. Hayes, I said carefully, how can I help you? I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Are you the Dr. Emily Carter who saved my life 3 years ago at Massachusetts General Hospital? Silence. Yes, I finally said. He exhaled, a long, shaky breath. I thought so. I've been trying to figure out why you looked so familiar. Then Victoria mentioned you were a trauma surgeon at Mass General, and I started putting pieces together. I called the hospital. They confirmed you were the lead surgeon on my case. Yes. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you say anything when we met at your family's dinner? I laughed, a bitter sound. Would it have mattered? What do you mean? Mr. Hayes, my family has spent my entire life making it very clear that nothing I do matters. I could have told you at that dinner. I could have reminded you that I saved your life. But what would have been the point? You were there for Victoria. Everyone is always there for Victoria. Another pause. Dr. Carter, I need to understand something. The Emily Carter Innovation Fund at Mass General, that's named after you, isn't it? Yes. The fund that's revolutionized trauma care protocols across 17 states. The fund that saved over 800 lives in the past 3 years. The fund that I've personally donated $5.8 million to. Yes. Does Victoria know about this? No. Does your family know? No. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, Dr. Carter, I need you to come to the wedding. I can't. Please. I'm not asking as Victoria's fiancé. I'm asking as someone whose life you saved. I'm asking as someone who spent the last 3 years donating millions to a fund I now realize was your vision, your work, your legacy. I'm asking because I think your family needs to understand who you really are. They won't care, I said quietly. Then let me make them care. And that's how I found myself 2 days later walking into the Four Seasons Hotel for my sister's wedding reception. The ceremony had been beautiful, I was told. I skipped it, but Alexander had specifically asked me to attend the reception, and something in his voice made me agree. I wore a deep blue dress, simple but elegant. I arrived exactly at 7 p.m., when cocktail hour was ending and dinner was beginning. My mother saw me first. Her face went white. Emily? What are you doing here? I was invited, I said simply. Victoria appeared, radiant in her custom Vera Wang gown. Emily, you came! I didn't think… She stopped, looking between me and our mother. Did you? Ladies and gentlemen, Alexander's voice boomed through the sound system. If I could have your attention, please. The room quieted. 200 guests turned toward the head table where Alexander stood, microphone in hand, Victoria beside him. First, I want to thank everyone for being here to celebrate this incredible day with Victoria and me. Your presence means the world to us. Polite applause. But before we continue with the evening's festivities, I need to share something important. 3 years ago, I was in a terrible car accident. I was rushed to Massachusetts General Hospital with life-threatening injuries. The doctors gave me a 10% chance of survival. The room was completely silent now. There was one surgeon working that night who refused to accept those odds. She performed a 6-hour emergency surgery that saved my life. She visited me every day during my recovery. She refused payment beyond her salary. She just wanted me to live. My heart was pounding. That surgeon asked me to establish a research fund in her name, not for recognition. She insisted her name remain private, but because she wanted the money to save other lives. Over the past 3 years, that fund has grown to $5.8 million. It's revolutionized trauma care protocols in 17 states. It's saved 847 lives. He paused, scanning the room until his eyes found mine. That surgeon is here tonight, Dr. Emily Carter. Would you please stand? Every head in the room turned to look at me. My mother's face was frozen in shock. My father's mouth hung open. Victoria looked like she'd been slapped. I stood. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Emily Carter, one of the most accomplished trauma surgeons in the country, a professor at Harvard Medical School, the creator of emergency response protocols that are saving lives across the nation, and, he paused, looking directly at my parents, Victoria's older sister. The room erupted in applause, not for Victoria, for me. I need to be honest, Alexander continued. When I met Victoria, I didn't know she had a sister. She rarely mentioned you. Your parents introduced you as someone who works at a hospital. It wasn't until this week that I realized you were the same Dr. Carter who saved my life. He looked at Victoria, then at my parents. I don't understand how a family could have someone this extraordinary and not celebrate her every single day. Dr. Carter, you didn't just save my life. You've saved hundreds of lives. You've changed the future of emergency medicine, and you did it all while your own family refused to see your worth. The room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. My mother stood abruptly. Alexander, this is highly inappropriate. No, Mrs. Carter. What's inappropriate is calling your daughter worthless at her sister's engagement party when she's one of the most accomplished medical professionals in this city. Gasps rippled through the crowd. My father stood. Now see here. Mr. Carter, I've done my research. I know you paid for Victoria's education, but refused to help Emily. I know you introduced Victoria by her accomplishments, but reduce Emily to works at a hospital. I know that at that engagement party, you sat silently while your wife publicly humiliated your eldest daughter. Alexander handed the microphone to Victoria, who stood frozen, tears streaming down her face. He walked across the ballroom to where I stood. Dr. Carter, he said quietly, I owe you my life. I've spent 3 years trying to repay that debt through donations and support for your research. But standing here now, seeing how your own family has treated you, I realize I should have done more. I should have made sure the world knew who you really are. He turned to address the room again. Everyone here needs to know something. The woman standing beside me isn't just a surgeon. She's a pioneer. She's a lifesaver. She's extraordinary. And if her family can't see that, then they don't deserve her. The applause started slowly, then built to a standing ovation. 200 people stood and applauded, not for the bride, not for the groom, for me, for the invisible daughter who had finally been seen. After Alexander's speech, my parents tried to approach me. My mother reached for my arm. Emily, we need to talk about this privately. I stepped back. No, we don't. Emily, you're making a scene. I'm not making a scene, Mother. Alexander told the truth, that's all. My father tried a different approach. We didn't know about the fund, about your research. If you had told us, if I had told you, would it have mattered? Would you suddenly have been proud of me? Would you have introduced me as our daughter, the trauma surgeon, instead of Emily, who works at a hospital? He didn't answer. Victoria appeared, mascara running, still in her wedding dress. Emily, I didn't know. I swear, I didn't know you saved Alexander's life. I didn't know about any of this. I know you didn't, Victoria. You never asked. None of you ever asked about my life, my work, my accomplishments. You just assumed I was ordinary because I didn't fit your definition of success. But you should have told me about Alexander. Why? So you could take credit for my work? So mom and dad could use it to make themselves look good? I saved his life because that's what I do. I save lives, not for recognition, not for approval, because it's right. I looked at all three of them, my mother, my father, my sister, the people who should have loved me unconditionally, but who had spent 28 years making me feel worthless. I'm not angry, I said quietly. I've made peace with who you are, people who couldn't love me the way I needed to be loved. But I've also made peace with who I am, someone who deserves to be chosen first, celebrated, valued for exactly who she is. Emily, please, my mother started. You didn't choose me, Mom. Not once in 28 years did you choose me. So I'm choosing me. I'm choosing a life where I'm not invisible, where my accomplishments matter, where the people around me see my worth. I turned to walk away, then stopped and looked back at Victoria. For what it's worth, I hope you're happy with Alexander. He's a good man. He has integrity. He sees people for who they really are, not who he wants them to be. Maybe he can teach you how to do the same. I walked out of the Four Seasons Hotel with my head held high. Behind me, I could hear my mother calling my name, my father making excuses to guests, Victoria sobbing. But I didn't turn around. Because for the first time in my life, I was walking toward something instead of away from something. I was walking toward the life I deserved. 6 months have passed since Victoria's wedding. I'm sitting in my office at Massachusetts General Hospital, reviewing patient charts when my assistant knocks on the door. Dr. Carter, there's someone here to see you. Victoria walks in. She looks different, older, somehow, more serious. I hope it's okay that I came, she says. I gesture to the chair across from my desk. What do you need, Victoria? She sits, folding her hands in her lap. I need to apologize, not just for the wedding, but for everything, for 28 years of not seeing you, for letting mom and dad treat you like you were invisible, for being so focused on my own life that I never bothered to learn about yours. I wait. After the wedding, Alexander and I had a long talk. Actually, several long talks. He helped me understand what you've been through, what I put you through, what our parents put you through. She pauses, tears forming in her eyes. Emily, I didn't know. I genuinely didn't know how accomplished you are, how much you've achieved, how many lives you've saved. You didn't know because you never asked, I say gently. I know, and that's on me. I was selfish. I was entitled. I thought the world revolved around me because mom and dad made me think it did. She wipes her eyes. Alexander showed me the research papers you've published, the lives you've saved, the innovations you've created. Emily, you're extraordinary, and I'm ashamed that it took my husband telling me that for me to finally see it. What about mom and dad? I ask. Victoria sighs. They're struggling. They don't know how to process what happened. Dad's business associates have been asking about you. Mom's friends saw the video from the wedding. Someone posted it online, and it went viral. They're getting questions about why they never mentioned having a daughter who's a renowned surgeon. And they still don't get it. They think the problem is that you embarrassed them. They don't understand that the real problem is how they treated you for your entire life. I nod slowly. That doesn't surprise me. Emily, I don't expect you to forgive me right away. Or ever. really. I just needed you to know that I'm sorry and that I'm trying to be better. Alexander and I are in couples therapy, working through some things. Part of what we're addressing is my relationship with you and with our family. She stands to leave, then turns back. One more thing. I wanted you to know that I've started volunteering at a children's hospital. Nothing medical, just reading to kids, playing games with them. It's not much, but Alexander suggested it. He said if I wanted to understand what you do, I should spend time in a place where people like you work. For the first time since she walked in, I smile. That's good, Victoria. Really good. Can I ask you something? Sure. Do you think we could try to have a relationship? Not right away, but someday. A real one. Where I actually know my sister? I consider this. Maybe, but it would have to be different. You would have to actually show up, Victoria. Not just for the big moments, but for the small ones. Not just when it's convenient, but when it matters. I understand. And I'll try. I really will. After she leaves, I sit at my desk for a long time, thinking. My phone buzzes. A text from Alexander. Hope Victoria's visit went okay. No pressure to respond. Just wanted you to know that the fund hit 7 million today. 1,043 lives saved and counting. You're changing the world, Dr. Carter. I smile and type back, thank you, Alexander, for everything. That evening, I go home to my condo overlooking the Charles River. I make dinner, pour a glass of wine, and sit on my balcony watching the sunset. My phone rings. It's Sarah, my best friend from medical school. Did you see the Boston Globe article about you? What article? The one titled, The Invisible Surgeon, How Dr. Emily Carter Revolutionized Trauma Care While Her Family Looked the Other Way. It went up online an hour ago. They interviewed patients you've saved, colleagues you've mentored, students you've taught. It's beautiful. I pull up the article on my phone. The first paragraph reads, Dr. Emily Carter has saved over 1,000 lives. She's published groundbreaking research that's changed emergency medicine protocols nationwide. She's trained a generation of trauma surgeons, yet for most of her life, her own family called her worthless. This is her story. I read the entire article, tears streaming down my face. Not tears of sadness, tears of recognition. Someone finally saw me. Not just Alexander, not just Sarah, but the world. My phone buzzes again. Another text, this time from a number I don't recognize. Dr. Carter, this is Sophie's mom. Remember us? You saved our daughter 7 years ago. We just read the Globe article about you. We wanted you to know that Sophie is healthy, thriving, and she wants to be a doctor because of you. Thank you for not just saving her life, but for showing her what strength and grace look like. You are extraordinary. I save the message, and I realize something. I don't need my parents' approval anymore. I don't need Victoria's recognition. I don't need my family to finally see my worth, because I already know my worth. I know it in every life I save, every student I mentor, every protocol I improve, every patient who walks out of my hospital healthy because I refuse to give up on them. I am not worthless. I never was. And I finally, truly believe it. From a psychological perspective, Emily's story illustrates several important concepts. The golden child and scapegoat dynamic. In many families, one child becomes the golden child who can do no wrong, while another becomes the scapegoat who is blamed or dismissed regardless of their accomplishments. This wasn't about Emily's actual value. It was about her parents' inability to see beyond their own biases and social expectations. Conditional love versus unconditional love. Emily's parents offered conditional love, love based on meeting their expectations of what success should look like. True parental love should be unconditional, celebrating children for who they are, not just for how they make their parents look to others. The importance of boundaries. Setting boundaries with toxic family members isn't betrayal, it's self-preservation. Emily's decision to step back from her family wasn't about revenge. It was about protecting her mental health and choosing relationships where she was valued. Internal versus external validation. For years, Emily sought external validation from her family. True peace came when she internalized her own worth, when she stopped needing their approval to know she was valuable. Key lessons. Your value doesn't depend on whether others can see it. Setting boundaries is an act of self-respect, not selfishness. True family shows up, supports, and celebrates you. You don't owe loyalty to people who don't respect you. Success isn't about proving others wrong. It's about living authentically. If you've ever been the invisible child in your family, if you've ever felt overlooked despite your accomplishments, if you've ever had to choose between your mental health and family expectations, know that you're not alone. You deserve to be celebrated. You deserve to be seen. You deserve to be chosen first. Thank you for being here until the very end. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share your own experiences in the comments below. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family members who couldn't see your worth? How did you find the courage to choose yourself? Share your story. Your voice might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Remember, you are not alone. You are seen. You are valued. Until next time, keep choosing yourself. You deserve it.